Here we go. And clicking it, 3, 2.
All righty. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy that we could get back together for another edition of Blue Table Talk. So my name is Kenneth Francis Lana. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I serve as a program coordinator here in the CAP office at UNC Greensboro, and I serve as one of the chairs of the Blue Table Talk committee here on campus. So today we are here with a new round of panelists, and today's topics are Black professionals across the Carolinas. So connecting our Black women students with strong role models in fields that they discussed interest in. So we're really excited to get started. So I'm gonna let my co-chairs introduce themselves, and then we'll go into introducing our panelists for this afternoon.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have some folks joining us again, as well as new people today. My name is Megan Carbley. I use she, her pronouns, and I am one of the assistant deans in the Dean of Students office and work with Bree and Kenneth on this amazing and rewarding project. We're so happy to have y'all here today. Thank you. Bree?
Hello, everybody. My name is Brianna Welsh. I go by Bree. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I currently serve as the coordinator for Residence Life in our Housing and Residence Life office here at UNCG. And kind of like my lovely co-host said, welcome and thank you so much for joining us again. And if this is your first time, it is okay. We appreciate you, but make sure you go back and watch our first series that aired in February.
All righty, thank you so much. So we're gonna get started in introducing our panelists. So our first panelist is Siobhan Witherspoon, DC. Dr. Siobhan Witherspoon is a chiropractor and certified medical examiner. She has been practicing chiropractic for the last 11 years and a CME for the last 2. She works as a personal injury practitioner in Philadelphia. From 2010 to 2016, she and her husband, Dr. Anthony Witherspoon, now reside in Raleigh, North Carolina, where they own their own chiropractic and wellness clinic. Dr. Witherspoon likes to spend her free time with her daughter and husband, as well as teaching up-and-coming medical assistants at the local technical school in Raleigh. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Siobhan Witherspoon.
Thank you for having me. Hey, everybody.
Next, we have Jada Powell, case investigator with Community Care of North Carolina. Jada Powell is currently completing her Master's of Science in Biomedical Science at Wake Forest School of Medicine. She began working with the Forsyth County Health Department to aid in the case investigation of COVID-19 and providing clinical knowledge and assistance to cases who test positive for COVID-19. She has gained experience in clinical research both in the laboratory, outpatient, and hospital setting, and has a great deal of experience working with diabetic patients in particular. She also resides on a newly formed committee with Wake Forest School of Medicine, of which she's the only graduate student on, geared toward inclusion and diversity in both recruitment and curriculum of the School of Medicine. She was born and raised down the street from UNCG and has always had a strong passion for speaking and education. Thank you for joining us, Jada.
I'm happy to be here.
Next, we have Leslie Peterson, who serves as a retail branch manager, our coordinator. Leslie Peterson is a 15-year financial industry veteran with a passion for seeing potential and creating a space for growth and transformation for individuals. In her current role, Leslie acts not only as a mentor to new team members, but as a resource for her peers. It is her hope that regardless of the industry job title or path one chooses, that you fill the space you are in with courage and conviction. Thank you so much for joining us, Leslie.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, we have Patrice S. Goldman, JD, MBA, who serves as an assistant university attorney at East Carolina University. Attorney Patrice Goldman is a native of Durham, North Carolina. She completed her undergrad studies at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, go Niners, and obtained her law degree from North Carolina Central University School of Law. Ms. Goldman was admitted to the North Carolina State Bar in 2018 and completed her Master's of Business Administration in 2019. Ms. Goldman began her career as University Counsel at East Carolina University in 2019. In her role, she prides herself on having a student-centered approach to her legal work and enjoys living in the academic world. Ms. Goldman also serves as an adjunct professor in the paralegal technology program at Guilford Technical Community College. Ms. Goldman is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the National Black MBA Association. Outside of work, Ms. Goldman enjoys binge watching TV, cooking and eating, spending time with her family and spoiling her adorable golden doodle blue. Thank you for joining us, Patrice.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, so now that we have introduced our panelists, we are going to go into a brief description of Blue Table Talk and how it all started. And I'm going to allow my other co-chairs to take it away.
All right, so just to give you all a little background about Blue Table Talk and kind of how we came to be a very successful program, if I do say so myself. It started about a year and a half ago. A grad student in our housing office and I, who identifies as a Black female, we kind of had this idea due to our current students coming to us with a problem and just needing a space to kind of be their authentic self and talk through things that they were experiencing as a student leader, not only as a resident advisor, but also within other student leadership positions that they held, and kind of how they were viewed as Black women at the university, but also Black men. And so from there, we had a couple of conversations, and her and I wanted to try and see if we could create another platform. And then unfortunately, COVID-19 hit. And so in the wake of that, I was still trying to figure out, what could we do, because there is a need and the students have presented us that the need is there. And so how can we further assist them? And so it was through my multiple conversations with Kenneth and Megan on different avenues and different ways and different meetings. And we all basically had the same idea. And I said, you know what, Kenneth, that is a great idea. I know somebody else who also thinks and feels the same way we do. Let's all have a conversation. So we basically had a Zoom meeting, hammered out some ideas, and then found out that we could apply for a grant, which is the iBelong grant that was given to us through our university. And luckily we were able to secure it. And so we were able to have a focus group with some of our students just to make sure that this idea that we have, this passion that we have for elevating our Black women students who identify as African-American at UNCG, is this something that they actually need, or are we just making it up? Or is it only a few of our students that need this, and will it actually be beneficial? Very much so through that focus group, we learned that the need is there and that they just needed a platform, but also some guidance on some navigating some difficult topics that they might not understand how to get through themselves, or that the university itself did not have the actual tangible resources for them to have access to these things. And so we told them, funded or not, we were going to make this happen. And so we definitely appreciate all of our panelists that have joined us thus far, especially tonight, talking about Black professionals in the Carolinas, just so it showcases other avenues that our Black women can actually navigate through, but also seeing somebody that looks like them in the field that they love and that they are passionate about. And so that's kind of where Blue Table Talk came from. And I'm very, very excited that so many of you have joined us, but also have been supporting us thus far to get to where we are today. We can't wait to see what happens after this.
All righty, awesome. I just wanted to make sure that Megan didn't want to include anything. So before we get started with our discussion prompts, we want to start with centering ourselves. We want to ensure that we are all here present in body and mind. So to do this, we want to know what brought you to the space today. And whoever would like to start, please feel free to unmute your mic.
I'll go ahead and start. So I think what really brought me to this space here today is the fact that, this is very much so an underrepresented population, not only in corporate America and, in different fields in the industry, but, having the safe space to be able to talk these things out and share knowledge and communicate in regards to how to uplift, one another. And also how to, increase space for us, in prioritizing who we are and making sure that we are heard, because our voices do matter. So I'm very adamant about this fact. I'm very passionate about it. So whenever I have the opportunity to share what I know, as well as, the opportunity for me to learn as well, because who knows all exactly, basically. So that's what really drew me here today. And I'm just, so happy that I could be a part of this.
I agree. I'll piggyback off of my other line sister, Jada. y'all didn't get to hear me say that Kenneth was also my line sister. Yeah, so knowing that some of the questions and some of the topics that we'll discuss today center around mentorship and kind of reaching back, that's something that I think I hold dear to my heart. You know, when people ask me, you know, well, how did you get, you know, we'll get into that later. How did you get to, you know, where you are, and how did you get interested? And I always tell people, none of this, you know, I did on my own. And so I think part of my calling in this work is to kind of pay that forward, to continue to reach back and help other young women. And like Jada said, you know, based on people's personalities or for one reason or another, it's not always easy to find the resources that you really need as a Black woman without seeming like you're looking for a handout or, you know, it being misinterpreted. And so I think that's what brought me to this space. And I want to say that I'm happy to be here to share with everyone. So yeah, I think that's my input on that one.
I think that I love what you said about mentorship and the importance of giving back. I think that is kind of what brought me to the space as well. I think that for me, because I have such a non-traditional route to education and to my career path, I felt that it was important to be able to share that for those who may not have a traditional route to where they're trying to go, and being able to switch gears, restart, and have the courage to change directions in the middle of a path. I thought is so important to be able to share that because sometimes we get started on a path and we find ourselves in a completely different place than we intended to be, and we have to shift. And I know that when I was making those decisions, I didn't have someone to talk me through it, and I didn't have anyone that did what I was trying to do at the time. So I think that that's also what brought me to the space as well. So.
Likewise, I guess I'm going to piggyback off of everybody and say that anything that has to do with empowerment, anything that has to do with lending a helping hand, I'm all for it. Because coming up, I didn't see that a lot. I'm, maybe telling my age a little bit, but when I was going through school, I didn't see a lot of people, extending their hand or giving information freely without wanting something back in return. And so anytime I'm able to speak or give advice or, anything like that to help somebody else that may, be up and coming or, want to do healthcare, it doesn't even matter. If I can help in any way, then I'm the first in line. I'm all for it. Sign me up. And so that's what brought me to this space today. I'm always willing to give any knowledge that I may have, and also to learn too, because I don't know everything. So I'm here. So that's what brought me here.
Thank you all for sharing a little bit about what brought you to this space. And I truly hope that this is an opportunity for you to give back and reach as you can. And I'm going to give it to Bree.
Like Kenneth said, thank you again. And so we're going to hopefully go in the same order if possible. So our next question that we have for you is, how did your collegiate career help you determine your current career path, and what influences did you have?
So I guess I'll go first. I don't know. So as far as, me being an undergrad, I had a totally different path that I was going to take. I was going to be an OBGYN. I was going to deliver babies. That's what I was going to do. As I kind of went through school in Winston-Salem State, hey Rams, I realized that babies come at all times of the night. They come, and I was like, well, maybe that's not what I want to do. I want a life. I don't want to deliver babies at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That's not what I want to do. I always say it was kind of like almost like divine intervention that, when I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? I have another year and a half before I graduate. My school, a recruiter from a chiropractic school came in, and I said, you know what? I remember going to a chiropractor when I was young. When I was younger, my mother was a New York City paramedic, and it essentially broke her back while on duty. And they wanted her to get all types of pins and things like that in her spine. And she said, no, I'm going to go and see this chiropractor. Everybody thought she was crazy. But the chiropractor actually helped her out and saved her from having to get, this surgery that could have been life-changing. It could have, paralyzed her. Who knows? And so just kind of thinking back, I'm like, maybe I'll be a chiropractor. Let me see what this is about. I went to the campus and, visited, and I liked what I was hearing. You can heal the body without having to introduce a lot of harmful, substances and chemicals, without having to go the surgery route. And so that's kind of, what led me to chiropractic. And just going to, it was small, it felt like, I can get a lot of attention there. And that's what kind of brought me to where I am as a chiropractor. And I say it's always for the best, and you always are where you're supposed to be, because that's where I met my husband. And so I'm like, I must have done something right. So that's my story with, undergrad, and then going on to grad school and so forth and so on.
Go ahead, Leslie. You want to go?
So I'll just say that my career field that I'm currently in absolutely has nothing to do with my undergrad degree nor my master's degree. It is in a completely different field. I have degrees in music, and I am in banking. And so, my journey to where I am happened surprisingly. And it was I was recruited to go into banking, and I thought it was going to be something temporary because I wanted to be a music teacher and I wanted to have my own music school, which I still want to do, but different capacity, different time. But I was recruited to go into banking, and it was one of the best decisions that I've made for myself. And I've had the most amazing experience. And, I credit the life that I've been able to achieve to making that change. And it took a lot of courage to put that on pause to pursue a career in something completely different. And that's one of the reasons why I say it's so interesting to be able to shift gears in the middle of your life, graduating thinking you're going to do one thing, but then making a change to do something else is a scary thing to do, because you have people around you who are expecting you to do one thing. You were expecting yourself. So the ability to be able to be okay with the decisions that you've made to change and shift gears, that takes a lot of internal reflection, and realizing that you paid all of this money for this education that you think is not going to translate, and finding a way to make a transition and have that education still support what you're doing when you follow a different path, I think is so important. And I think that my undergrad experience really gave me the foundation to be able to be a chameleon. It was necessary to be able to be accepting of myself, accepting of my career path. So that's what I wanted to share about that.
In the same way, Leslie, actually, I want to discuss, my collegiate career path is similar to yours, because I actually, after I graduated, I went into banking as well. But my collegiate career actually prepared me for where I am now, but I did take a non-traditional route, because after I graduated, I didn't go straight into grad school. I didn't go straight for a PhD or, because I want to do research. But that's what I did in undergrad. All throughout my undergraduate career, I did research. I studied abroad and did research. Everywhere I went, I did research. And I think I don't know, maybe I just wasn't mature at the time. The maturity level that I had wasn't where I am now. And so I didn't feel that I was ready for the next step in the career path that I wanted to take. So I took an alternate route. I went into, I actually worked for a law firm my first year, working with medical records. And then the 2 years later, I worked for Wells Fargo as a data analyst and used some of my computer science background. But the degree I received in undergrad was psychology, but with biology and cognitive science. So it was kind of in itself like this it seemed a little scatterbrained at the time. But I mean, the pieces managed to fit together. However, it just wasn't, I don't think I was just prepared at the time to take that next step, to take the initiative and go forward with that. So I did, like I said, take the alternate route. But that experience out of college also really helped me to achieve where I am now in going back into school. But I would say that my collegiate career really did help determine where I am now, even though I think I tried to stray away from it. But it really did help, help me identify with the person I am today and the career path that I'm on.
So my undergraduate major was in political science and public advocacy communication studies. I did not start out as that. I started out as a chemistry major, and my advisor told me that I needed to switch majors because Black women typically did not do well in the chemistry program. So after, a whole bunch of hoopla, I just went on about my business, but I do think, I can't remember who said it earlier, but you are where you belong. And so I made the best out of that. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I'm not one of those people who was like, oh, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was, 3. That really wasn't my story. I remember my father called me one day junior year and he was like, okay, so what are you going to do next? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. He was like, okay, well, you need to figure it out. And so I think that was just me being naive, needing that extra push, because I'm the type of person to get comfortable where I am. And so I just really hadn't thought beyond that moment. But a lot of my classmates, other political science majors, were heading to law school. And so it felt like the next natural step, even though, like I said, I had not necessarily set out on that path. But then it was experiences like these. Once I set out on that path, I joined the Pre-Law Society. Once I figured out, okay, this is what I'm going to do next. And so it was panels like these, opportunities to hear what other people who had taken similar paths had to say, the advice that they had to give that kind of kept guiding me in that direction. And then through experiences like that, I got an internship at a law firm my senior year, summer going into my senior year. And I think that's where I kind of made the ultimate decision, like, okay, I think this is something that I really want to do. But like a bunch of other career fields, there's different, specialties, different areas you can go to within the field. And like Dr. Witherspoon said, I chose, I guess, like my niche based on the lifestyle that I wanted. And so, we hear about corporate law and big law, and none of those things sound fun to me. Shout out to my colleagues that, stay up at 3 a.m. billing hours, but I knew that I didn't want that for myself. Also, fun fact, both of my parents are higher ed professionals. My mom is taught as a chef instructor, hospitality. My father is in senior leadership. And so I kind of grew up around higher ed. I grew up on college campuses. And so my internship in law school was in the Office of Legal Affairs at NCCU. And that's kind of where I met my mentor and decided, oh, this is really what I want to do. It's the best of both worlds. I get to work with students. I get to work on college campus, but also mesh it with my legal work. And so I think I ended up prioritizing that lifestyle, like was spoken earlier.
Thank you all for sharing about your path and the ways that you didn't or couldn't anticipate where you would be now, but being able to recognize each of those navigational pieces and directions that your life took you in. I think it's so helpful for our students to hear that. As you reflect on the experiences that you had in college, whether as an undergraduate or graduate student, were there any barriers or challenges that you faced as a Black woman or relevant to other parts of your identity? And if you wouldn't mind sharing what they were and what you did to navigate those barriers.
I'll start, I guess, because I've already mentioned my favorite advisor that told me that Black women didn't do well. I had other advisors, I think, who were maybe not necessarily as discouraging blatantly, but not necessarily encouraging either. I think, yeah, so that's just interesting. I think dealing with and having to, as a college student, navigate professionals who are, tasked with helping students, supposed to be, leaning on the pillar of student success. And then you get there and you find out that some people are just advisors because that was one of their duties as a faculty member. And so one of the things that I did, I actually didn't use my assigned advisor. And I'm not, by any means encouraging people to do that. Hopefully, people don't have that experience, but I think you have to do what you have to do. And sometimes it's okay to be your own support system. Thankfully, like I said, I did have parents who were able to kind of help guide me, so when I had questions, they're like, no, well, you need to go see this person or see that person. Also, my older sister went to UNC Charlotte as well. So she was able to build connections, I think, that I was kind of just able to inherit in a sense. And so I found another advisor, long story short, and did what I needed to do to get the information that I needed. There's always, professors who may not necessarily want to help you in the way that you need to be helped. I feel like I can say this as like baby faculty, the faculty world is interesting. These people are smart and just geniuses, but we don't always see eye to eye with students, and that's okay. And I think it's important for students to know that that is okay, that you can tap into other resources. There's the hazing process in law school and a whole other host of, barriers put in the way once I got to law school that were just difficult for me to overcome. The biggest one being academic challenges, something that I am never afraid to share with people is that I was academically dismissed from law school my first year because I don't know if anybody can truly be prepared for law school when you first get there, but it was a challenge for me. But it was a challenge that I was able to overcome and able to get back in. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm always, that's such a big part of my story. And when I'm mentoring other, especially Black women, I'm always happy to tell my story because it's not just me who got me here. But I think the ways that I was able to overcome those was just to tap into the resources that were available to me, not necessarily focusing on the bad or not necessarily focusing on those people who didn't want to help me, not sitting around complaining about that, but celebrating my victories, using what I had and letting that push me forward, I think was a way that I was able to overcome those barriers. And I think Leslie kind of spoke to this a little bit earlier, sometimes it is difficult when you feel like other people are looking at you or have certain expectations of you, or it just feels hard in the moment to figure out, okay, where do I go from here? But there's always a next step. And sometimes you don't know what it is. You just kind of put your foot out there, but you'll land somewhere and you can keep going. So yeah, those are some of the barriers and some of the ways that I was able to overcome them.
I want to follow up to my brave sister, Patrice. I think in the same way, I definitely had a similar situation in regards to my advisor, my collegiate advisors. I actually had two minor advisors. Now I'm only going to state the facts as a researcher, but both were women. Both were not women of color. And one told me that I would never get into the program that I'm in now. She told me I would never make that. And the other said that I had the highest potential in the world to make it. So it was so weird to hear two very different, polar opposite opinions from both advisors. And, just not knowing really as a young person, I couldn't have been more than like 20, 21. So to, interpret both of those answers and just not really know where to go from there. There weren't a lot of women like me that looked like me that were in research at the time. So it was hard for me to really distinguish what a person like me that looks like me, what challenges I would face in this field. And so that was actually my first eye-opening experience into that world. And, both were women who had mentored me for like multiple years, I'd say. But it really troubled me to know that one person who, spent at least 2+ years with me didn't have any faith in me or my abilities whatsoever, even though I never gave her any kind of real indication that I wouldn't do well. But, the belief that I wouldn't succeed really challenged me. And it, in a sense, it did affect my self-esteem, but it also allowed me to be the courageous person I am today. And it allowed me to push further in regard to what a career looks like, what I want it to look like, how I intend to push further from where I am now. So, stuff like that, it really can, of course, mess with, everything in regards to what you're thinking, your emotions, your anxieties, the pressures, everything like that. It's really hard to make sense of it from such a young age. And, in college, it's really kind of a carefree environment. So, when it does start to become serious in that way, you really have to find and look within yourself and feel, okay, so what does, for example, what does Jada want? What does Patrice want? What does Kenneth want? That sort of thing. And so it really did trigger, I wouldn't say it triggered me, but it really did spark in me a sense of where I want to find community and what community looks like. And now my community looks very diverse. I have, a great group of colleagues. I have a great group of advisors and mentors that I consider, not only leaders in my community, but also great friends. I think it's great to find that community early on. And, if you find it in your college career, that's great. If you find it outside of your college career, that's also great. But I think really finding that community can, it can assist you with so much of, what you want out of your career and what your focus really should be, or what you really want your focus to be.
Yeah, Jada, I just want to name for you and Patrice so far. Thank you for naming some of those ways that folks who you respected or looked up to didn't reciprocate that investment. In our last session, we were talking exclusively about allyship and the role that white women play in that, specifically as we're talking about gender, but also intersectionality and the way that race shows up in that. And so I want to name as one of the one of the chairs of the committee here, that was something that we really wanted to interrogate in these sessions, is the ways that, particularly for students at PWIs, where they are by and large maybe mentored or overseen or advised by white women. A lot of those higher ed positions are held by women that look more like me than the students that we might be serving, and how like you said, not always, but a lot of the time that can be really problematic. And so recognizing that our Black women students need a space like this to not only see themselves reflected, but to hear those stories and see the ways that that others can lift them up, while still holding how hurtful those moments are and influential that they can be. So I really appreciate you all sharing those stories so far. Our other panelists.
I guess I'll go next. So some of the obstacles that I had came not in undergrad, but in graduate school. So a lot of people may not know that there aren't a lot of African-American chiropractors. Not a lot of us at all. Most of us know each other. That's how small our circle is, being chiropractors. And so because there aren't a lot of chiropractors, when you go to chiropractic school, there are not a lot of people of color. And going to school, by the time I hit, because we were on a quarter system. So by the time I hit my third quarter of a 14-quarter program, about 75% of the people of color that I came in with were gone, out of school, failed out. And that was something that I'm not going to say that it was done on purpose, but I know for a fact that a lot of people of color were not advised in the same ways that people, that other people were. So there were two different systems or ways of advising students depending on color. Let me just be very honest right now. Let's just say, I'll just say it. My first semester, I failed anatomy. All right, I failed anatomy. I had to take it again. The way that I was advised on, you should just stay in the class. But in that particular school, if you stayed in the class and you failed that class, you could not move on to anatomy 2 or anatomy 3. You would have to go right back to anatomy 1, and that would put you back a whole quarter from graduation. But other people were advised that, okay, if you drop it, then you can still go on to anatomy 2 and take anatomy 1 at the same time, and you can still stay on to graduate at the same time. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing. And if you ever brought it up, it was like, oh no, well, we told you that. And it's like, well, no, I don't remember that, but okay. It's just a lot of, when people say, and I hate to be, this cliche, but you have to work twice as hard to get, it just is half as good. And it really was like that at my, at chiropractic school. I remember this one instance where, so in chiropractors have to take 4 boards. The 4th board is 3 days long. You have to take it. We have actors that come in and act like they have certain, ailments and things going on as a practical. And I remember going to get something signed from a group of teachers that I looked up to. And I remember them talking, and I can hear, oh, did you know that such and such got such, this grade on part 4? Like, that's a high grade. I can never, that's amazing. And, I'm like, okay, well, whatever, let me get my thing signed. And then it was kind of like, matter of fact, well, Siobhan, what did you get on yours? And I got higher than that person. I got one of the highest grades on part 4 of my class, of the people that took part 4 that term, and mouth dropped. And it's like, well, you were proud of this person. Why aren't you proud of me? And it was like that throughout the whole 4 years that I was in school. And so what kind of helped me was to have my tribe of people. It wasn't many of us. It was literally 4 of us that studied together, hung out together, practiced together, and we stuck it out, and we all graduated at the same time. But if I didn't have that tribe, I don't know if I would have made it, because it was like, that you can tell me what I'm not going to do. You can tell me, but I'm just going to work twice as hard to make sure that I get it done. So, and that's just, what it is. But you have to find your tribe, find somebody that may be going through what you're going through and lean on each other. And that's what helped me get through. And so that's why I'm an advocate for, helping other people. I'll talk to anybody, if they're a chiropractor or whatever. I teach medical assistance. If you need me, I'm here. I'm going to make sure that I'm that person that will help you, that will, guide you towards resources and things like that to help you, because I don't ever want anybody to feel like they were just left out there and almost like, like somebody was betting against them. So, that was kind of my story. Didn't happen in undergrad, but
So my undergrad experience was where I faced the most challenge. When I went to college, initially I went to a historically Black college, and I transitioned to a predominantly white institution my sophomore year. And I ended up being in the only African-American female in my program, in my instrument. So I am a piano major, piano performance, and I was the only one. And just the experience of being in a department where you are the only face of diversity is a challenge. And I felt completely alone going from somewhere where I was a part of a community. It wasn't just me, to a place where I was the only one was a challenge for me. And it's part of the reason my experience there was part of the reason why I had lost a little bit of confidence in my ability to pursue my career further in that industry or in music. I think that I didn't get as much pushback once I got into the program, but getting into the program, it was a challenge, not because of anything that I did, but because of my reception. And I remember leaving my audition feeling as if they'll take me just because. It wasn't a warm, welcoming experience to come on, we would love to have you. It was more, okay, you're really good. And if you can get into the university portion, we'll take you. As if I wasn't smart enough. They hadn't even seen my transcripts. I left a full ride to go to the college that I was going to, where I was going to have to pay just because the music program was better and had a better reputation. I thought I was doing myself a justice by leaving the comfort of my community to go somewhere where my university and my education would have a better stamp, I thought. I don't know, it was very challenging. And being the only Afro-American, I went to all girls college, so it was just females, women. And that is where I learned how to, we call it code switch. I learned how to be one thing at one time and be myself at another time. I learned that very early on. In fact, I learned it my first semester in one of my classes. The tone of my voice is a little heavy, and when I'm very passionate about something, I appear to other people as if I'm being aggressive. And so in my very first class, we were talking about sacred music, and I was really excited and passionate just about the transition and how secular music actually came about. And so I was really giving, my points. And one of my classmates turned to me and said, "Did you have your coffee this morning?" And I was shocked because I didn't know what she meant. But she meant that I was grumpy, or I was aggressive, or I was mad, or I hadn't woken up. And it did make me feel very small in the moment. And I had to learn from that moment on that I needed to raise the timbre of my voice and be a little lighter so that they would receive me. And that was that is the experience that I had and continue to have until I graduated. And I think that sometimes we learn lessons that we shouldn't have to learn through experiences that we shouldn't have to have, but it was a good lesson for me to learn. And I wanted to go back to the concept that Jada had and Siobhan had about community and having your tribe. I felt completely isolated and I felt very alone. And I had to figure out what to do. And so when I went to college, there was 2 other historically Black colleges and universities. So I ended up reaching out to the music department at the college that I came from and a different college, and was able to create a network of other people who had the same passions and the same vision, and just, reaching out to fill the void of loneliness that I had just for community. And so I love the idea of reaching out, not just to the people in your immediate area that are within your school or university, but really using your brain to try to figure out how to reach out into the community to figure out how you can create a tribe for yourself. I think that is so important, and it takes a lot of courage to be in a position where you are the only one or you are a minority and you have felt the pain of being different, and still following through with your passions and following through with being able to build something for yourself. So that was, just wanted to share that. That was my undergraduate experience.
Thank you all so much for your vulnerability. It seems like we all have had very different experiences, but there are commonalities or a thread that runs through all of those stories. And I'm very happy that you all are here to share those stories with our students. It's something that we all as Black women seem to experience, and for them to be able to see people come from their collegiate barriers or borders that higher education seems to create to where you are now is very inspiring. So thank you all so much for that. We do have some questions from the audience that we would love to ask you. And if you would like to answer, please feel free, challenge by choice. Our first question is, what advice do you have for building social networks when looking for guidance throughout your professional career?
I think I'll answer that one. I think my advice, to put it specifically, is when looking for networks, I think it's, making sure that you're looking for positive networking, because there are such things as toxic mentorships. There are such things as toxic relationships. So taking that knowledge into and just knowing who you are, knowing everything about yourself, going into any kind of networking opportunity and knowing that, okay, I'm looking for a meaningful connection. I'm looking for something deeper than what's just on the exterior. So, you're looking for connection. So, I mean, when you think about it, it's not just about what's going to push you further in your career, but it's also what's going to push you further as a person.
I guess I would just like to add, I hate networking, y'all. So that's why I was like, I'm not answering this question. But I would add to those last 2 phrases that Jada used, what's going to push you further as a professional, what's going to push you further as a person, who is going to hold you up? Like Leslie said, it is hard being in spaces where you are different or the minority, or you feel left out. I even now in my career, I mean, I live in Eastern North Carolina. It's a rural area. People are familiar with ECU, but that's about it out here. And none of the people in my workspace look like me or sound like me. And so I guess I just want to add, always looking for that sense of community. If I have to be the third person to say it on this webinar, I'll be the third person to say it, but finding that community is so important. And then even tapping into the community that you already have is so very important, just as much as it is networking, because I think millennials and probably Gen Z as well are different from other generations in the sense that work is not all we have. We don't mind cutting it off at 5:01 and we are out of here. Okay, we have other things to do, a life outside of work. Not that, it's problematic, but I think that, that work culture has changed over time. It has evolved, and we are very different in that sense, is that, like, we're not necessarily friends with our coworkers. That's not necessarily all we have. So I always stress to people, even in school, whatever your professional network is, make sure you have people that are going to hold you up outside of that, because when things happen in the world, and when Black people are dying, and we just skip up right over it at work and it's business as usual, I need something to hold on to at the end of the day. I need a place where I can go and say, hey, look, my day was business as usual, but now I need some support. Where y'all at?
Y'all, the other question that we had from the folks who are watching is, what advice do you have for Black women who are finding their worth professionally?
Did you say finding your worth?
Mm-hmm. They're wondering about how do I find my worth professionally?
Okay, so I definitely can share on this one, because I'm even in my current where I am now, it is very difficult to get affirmation. It has been very difficult to get external validation. And every day I walk into my office and I have to remind myself that the work that I'm doing is important if I'm never told that it's important. I have to understand that the people that I serve appreciate the work that I do, whether or not the higher ups acknowledge the service that I'm providing, the level of service, the level of commitment that I provide. I think that really evaluating my performance was a major key to knowing how much I was worth in my position and what I was worth to my organization. I took the time to actually reread, and I do this on a regular basis, my job description. And I see the parts of my job where I am excelling at a high level. And then I see the areas of improvement. So I do a lot of self-evaluation before someone can come and evaluate me. Okay, so I do a lot of self-reflection before I have any sort of evaluation in a structure with like your annual or your mid-year review. I thoroughly go through my performance. I thoroughly go through the metrics, and I say, okay, well, I already know that I was slipping in this area, but this is where I can say, hey, this was not as good as I would like it to be, but here's where I excelled. I think that you have to, I always tell my teams and the people that I mentor that you can't be reactive in a situation like this, where you are a minority, or you're different, or you're the only one. You can't be reactive. You have to be proactive. You have to know who you are, where you stand performance-wise. And once you have that information, you can use that information, because they can't dispute the facts when you're performing, and they can't dispute the facts when you've added value. And that's actually my story right now. I've been able to argue a raise recently. because I knew exactly where I was and I knew exactly what I was trying to do. And when they told me no, I said, that's not going to work for me. I think that we need to reevaluate. That's a dangerous thing when you don't know who you are and you don't have that performance and you don't have what you need to be able to say, let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the amount of people that I've trained. Let's look at, the performance of the overall branch. Let's look at our staffing model. You have to have something to present, not only to yourself, but when you're called to the table, you have to be able to say, okay, this is what we have going on. I think self-reflection is the key to that, and really evaluating who you are and how you perform in the professional space. So.
Anyone else? Alrighty, so our next point is the importance of mentorship. So research shows that mentorship is critical for successful student development, specifically for Black women. So please share with us how mentorship assisted you during your collegiate and professional
career. I'll go, but I know we've been talking about mentorship this whole time, so I think it'll be pretty brief. But I think really when I think on how mentorship has really developed me and helped assist me in matters even beyond my professional career, I think that it really helped me in determining what I see from myself, both personally and professionally. There's a lot of discovery in mentorship. That's the purpose of it, I feel, is to find out new knowledge, whether it be about yourself, whether it be about a certain industry, a field, perhaps. I think there's always something to learn. And so, going into mentorship with an open mind and making sure that whatever mentorship opportunity you take, as well as if you provide services to a mentor to someone else, make sure that it's a very open and honest environment. Make sure that it is something that, there's not a lot of, the criticism is constructive, for one, and make sure that it's not a lot of, kind of like lashing out or, passive aggressive communication. Make sure that it's very open, because, that's something that leads into that toxic mentorship that I told you, because those are they're out there, they're prevalent, I'm sure many of my co-panelists can, also agree that that's something that, if they've been through it at least once in their lifetime. So that's something that you really want to take into consideration, is making sure that nothing negatively affects you. So if something feels that it's not serving you to a positive purpose, then it's okay to leave. It's okay to say, okay, I tried to build a mentorship. I tried to build this relationship with this person. It didn't work out. I can leave it and just be fine and find something that serves me better, serves the purpose more geared towards what I am looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. Purposeful mentorship. I agree with all of those points. I think but mentorship for me was incredibly impactful. And I absolutely would not be where I am without my mentors. And those came in the form of former supervisors, family, friends, professors, and even supervisors in my career. I always pretty much have needed a mentor every step of the way. Getting dismissed from school, I needed a mentor. I needed someone to help me navigate a backup plan. And then once I realized, okay, I wanted to go back, I needed somebody to help me navigate, okay, how do I not make the same mistakes I made last time? And so I had mentors, again, that were professors, and then my former supervisor at NCCU in the Office of Legal Affairs is probably my I mean, to this day. So first of all, she's how I got the job at ECU. She worked at ECU. So that's that networking piece that I hate. But it's so meaningful. You know, she works at ECU. She started out at ECU. And so I didn't know these people. She knew them, you know, so she really helped me get to where I am. And even still, there are some things that I am lost on, and I don't have, you know, I can't reach out to the people I work with. They're busy. You know, I can pick up the phone during the day and call her and ask her, how do I do so and so? And she's more than happy to help me. And that is so meaningful to me. I mean, I have such deep appreciation for the fact that my mentors have always been, like Jada said, positive mentors for me. I've never felt like I was burdening a person. I never felt like I was getting on someone's nerves, and I'm sure that I have gotten on these people's nerves before. And so my job, I feel my duty is to pay that forward, as I stated earlier. So now, you know, it's still informal, but I mentor young women who are interested in either going into the law field or are already law school students. I have a couple of law school students now that I mentor on a weekly basis. On Wednesday nights, we get on Zoom. It's a check-in. It's, did you stick to your schedule? It's, why are you not telling me the truth? Because like Jada said, it's some accountability on that piece. But I feel that the type of mentor I want to be, in a positive sense, yes, but I want to be the mentor in some of the ways that I didn't have a mentor. You know, I want to make sure that I'm not just pushing girls out there and saying, oh yeah, girl, you can do it, go to law school, but supporting them when they get there, supporting them when they're at that 2.0 or that 1.5 and they are struggling, because it happens. And I've been there. And I know that, you know, reaching back and helping somebody, you know, just that one extra check-in can be the reason why someone succeeds or doesn't give up or decides that they're going to keep going. And so, like I said, I have such a deep appreciation that now I just feel like it's my duty, it's part of my calling. And so obviously mentorship is a big deal for me, but those are some of the ways that it has really been super impactful for me, and then again has encouraged me to try to be that same person for someone else.
All right, I guess I'll go next. Can you guys hear me? Okay, all righty. For me, it's kind of different because I really didn't have any mentors when I was in school. So that's why I was like, well, I don't know, should I say anything or not? I just didn't. We mentored each other. There wasn't, you know, anyone that was a, you know, upperclassman that mentored us. We mentored each other. So I guess, you know, that it worked. It worked. If I didn't know something, then I went to somebody that I trusted. That was my peer, if you know, and we helped each other out. My husband and I, that's how we became chiropractors. We mentored each other. What I didn't know, I learned from him. What he didn't know, he learned from me. And what we didn't know, we learned together. And so I guess, you know, I don't have the conventional, you know, having a mentor. But, you know, that's pretty much my story. I have a mentor now. If that makes any difference, you know, it's not collegiate, but in business, if you're going to be out here, you know, I have a mentor now who is amazing, and I'm kind of sad that I missed that going through school. But like I always say, everything happens for a reason. So.
I had a similar experience when it comes to being mentored, which is why, you know, I'm so passionate about being a coach now, because I had to figure it out. And what do you do when the mentor is not accessible? The best lesson that I learned is that your mentors can come in a lot of different forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person that you're directly connected to. Like Siobhan said, you know, she was mentored by her community, by the people that she was going through the process with. I think that for me, because what I want to do was so different, I needed to be mentored in a different way. Sometimes when you are going a place you haven't been, it can be a very lonely journey when you don't know anyone who anyone else who does the same thing. And so I found a lot of people to look up to and follow their journey through books they've written, through social media, like, people who are legitimately successful and are taking the time to reach back in a way that you can actually see their success and really understand how they got to where they are. I think that when you have the opportunity to build a relationship with someone, that's very important. But in the absence of that type of relationship, using your resources in a different way, like I said, reading books, finding other experts who have done what you're trying to do is very important until you can make the necessary connections to have someone who can get you into places that you've never been before. I think you have to be a little bit creative when you're in an isolated space. And I think that it worked for me, and being able to tell people, okay, so I can't do this for you, but I know someone who can. One of the other things that I did and that I still do is, really create a board of advisors, so to speak, people who can help me, because you might not be able to get everything you need from that one person. So being able to have someone that is really good at business, or someone that's really good at marketing, someone that who has some connections in certain areas, so that you can put it all together to get the thing that you need. Sometimes it's not going to come from just one source, and you have to be open to being able to pull from the people that are in your life, or the things that are the resources that you have to create the space that you need. So that's my view.
Well, thank y'all so much. Y'all hit on a lot of good points, and I was definitely taking mental notes for myself, just being a young and new professional. So I definitely appreciate all of the wisdom and gems that you all have shared with us. As we round out everything and come to a close, our last thing we have for you, kind of going off of some of the mentorship and advice that you all were talking about, but more specifically, what words of advice do you have for our Black women students as they matriculate through UNC Greensboro and move into their careers?
Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry. I know my internet keeps going in and out. I'm sorry. My thing is to acknowledge your achievements. That's something that I don't think that we do enough. And I had to tell myself that. So just recently, and I'll say this, just recently, up until maybe 3 weeks ago, you would walk in my office and you would see a license and you would see a degree. That was it. Until I had to, think to myself, I've accomplished a lot in my life. I've worked hard for what I have. Why am I not putting this on display for when, so people can see when they walk into my door? And sometimes my husband always says, you act like you're regular. You act like we're regular. We worked hard to get where we are. We need to acknowledge that. So something that I have to keep in the back of my head, and I like to tell other people too, you worked hard to get where you are. Acknowledge your achievements. You acknowledge your achievements, acknowledge your degree, acknowledge your Black girl magic, acknowledge it all. Never forget who you are. You have done a lot. You have worked hard. Acknowledge it, flaunt it, and don't forget who you are. That's something that I always say. You just don't forget who you are. That's something that I tell people all the time. I had to tell myself just recently, acknowledge who you are, not to be, don't, brag about it or anything like that, but just acknowledge it and celebrate your achievements. Celebrate the hard work that you've done coming out of school. You worked hard, sleepless nights, tests, crying, sweating, tears, whatever. Acknowledge it and celebrate everything that you have done.
I'll say my piece of advice is to not compare your journey to anyone else's. As you've heard, all of the lovely panelists here today, none of us have really had like a smooth or straight journey. It's all come with complications, but that doesn't mean that what you're going through doesn't have to relate to anyone else's journey. It doesn't mean that you putting aside what you've done and like Dr. Witherspoon said, acknowledging your accomplishments throughout it all, just giving yourself give yourself like a break, give yourself some grace, because in all of it, you're making sure that you're taking yourself to the next level. You're becoming yourself, you're reinventing yourself over and over again. So it's not about what somebody else is doing. It's not about, how far somebody else is going. It's about how far you're pushing yourself.
I would like to say one of the things that I've learned to do throughout this journey was to feel the space that I'm in. I think that sometimes we shrink a little bit in the presence of others, or when we're put in situations where we're made to feel like we don't belong, but feel the space that you're in. You, like, the lady said, Jada and Siobhan said, you've accomplished so much and you're here. Fill that space. Fill that space with everything that you are and be unapologetic about everything that you are. And the last thing I would say is to continue to dream openly. I think that sometimes we can get locked into a path, and or we can limit ourselves by what is being set out for us. So dream openly. Make sure that that even though it may look impossible, you can do this. You can accomplish anything that you set your mind to do. Your road may be a journey that's not traveled, but you can be the first footprint in the sand of the path that you're taking. So, be who you are, feel the space, dream openly, and I promise you, you'll be successful.
I love that. I think my advice is to use your resources. You do not know what can come from something that seems, maybe lame or unnecessary, like office hours. Even relationships with advisors, even though I kind of trashed mine, you just never know, what could come from those relationships if you use them. So use your resources, go to the career fairs, go to the, the activities that are put together for students on campus. I got a lot of things from just being involved when I was in undergrad. So I would definitely say that networking, please network. Use your LinkedIn page. I can't even believe I'm giving this advice that I barely follow myself, but it's so important because I've told you all, the position I'm in now came from networking. And so networking is so important. Start building your network younger or earlier. And I think that might be why I hate it so much, is because I didn't start tapping into it until later on, until it was time for me to jump into my career. I would say definitely build that network, take opportunities. You never know what doors will open from what opportunities you seek out or what opportunities find you. Ask questions, be open to receiving help. And then I think most of all, just be yourself. Your gifts will make room for you. That's a phrase. I don't even know where it originated, but I feel like I say it all the time and it resonates with me. Be yourself. There is a space for you. There's a reason why you're here, and what you have to offer, someone needs somewhere. And if you just follow the course, I truly believe that you'll find where that destination is.
Y'all, thank you so much for sharing your story, your time, and your words of advice. I was actually trying to write down some of the pieces that you all shared, from filling up the room, not shrinking yourself, using your gifts, not comparing your journey to anyone else's, and appreciating every step that you've taken along the path, and rewarding yourself and giving yourself gratitude. It seems from our chat, I want to make sure that our panelists know that we've had folks chiming in on the live session, just talking about how much they appreciate the advice that you're giving, the vulnerability that you all are sharing with our students today, and your sheer presence. I think I speak for Kenneth and Bree when I say that this is exactly why we wanted to put this together, to bring women leaders like you all to a space, so that our students can see themselves reflected in your stories, and then take those stories and hopefully move forward in their own journeys, knowing that so many folks have kind of blazed the way. Thank you all so much for your stories. We've got a couple of things that we want to share with you. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, first and foremost, our third session for this semester is coming up on Tuesday, April 6th at 5 p.m. We'll be talking about intersectionality and Black women. So we're really excited about that session. We're going to do our best to try to keep it all in 90 minutes. But please join us if you can. The link will be on our YouTube channel. So if you're watching from YouTube, you'll be able to use the same link. For our participants, I've dropped an assessment in the chat that's live. I'm also going to share a link to Black-owned businesses here in Greensboro and in the area. We want you to go out and support those businesses. And please, if you have anything to add, certainly let us know. We want to share that good information and that good news about the work that folks are doing in our community as well. And then lastly, I'm going to turn it over to Kenneth to talk a little bit about the distribution of our journals.
Awesome. So to our panelists, as well as those tuning in on YouTube, we do have limited edition Blue Table Talk journals that everyone can get access to. For our panelists, I will be able to follow up. Since I know y'all, I'll just get it to you personally. But then for our students, please feel free to stop by the CAP office, which is located in the EC on the top floor. We are located in between the Office of Student Rights and Responsibilities, as well as Title IX. So we're kind of tucked away on the top floor, but come visit us anytime between 9 and 5, and you can come pick up a journal. The same thing is with the Hayward office, which is on the opposite side of campus in Spartan Village. If you head there, you head to the front desk, please just let them know you're here for a Blue Table Talk journal, and they will be able to get you one as well. So that is all that we have for you all. Again, thank you so much to our 4 panelists. Your voices, your experience has really added so much to this conversation, and our students are so appreciative of it. And I just want to thank you again. To those watching in YouTube land, thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to continuing these conversations. Have a great evening, everyone.